a room built for communal assembly carved from solid bedrock, fitted with tiered stone benches and a sculpted human figure at its center, built 11,000 years ago by people who had not yet developed agriculture. In this video, we're covering what was found at Karahantepe, how the structure was built, and why the evidence from this site is causing archaeologists to revise the standard model of when and how human civilization actually began. The site is called Karahantepe. Locals have long known it as Tepe, Goat Hill. It sits in the Tepe Mountains, 46 kilometers from the city of Şanlıurfa. Archaeologists first noted the site in 1997 when the tops of T-shaped stone pillars were visible above the surface. Full-scale excavations began in 2019, led by Professor Necmi Karul of Istanbul University under Turkey's national Taş Tepeler. In 6 years of work, the team has exposed a settlement covering roughly 10 hectares. They have reached approximately 5% of the total site. The central structure is circular, 17 meters in diameter, its floor carved from the living bedrock. Along the interior wall run 3 wide tiered stone benches, broad enough to seat groups of people, arranged in a curve that faces a single focal point at the center of the room. At that focal point stands a sculpture. Professor Karul described it in these terms: the focal point contains a sculpture, but opposite it there are 3 very broad, multi-layered benches, almost like an odeum or amphitheater. The size and depth of these tiers suggest that groups of people may have sat here. This is the earliest known structure in the human record that appears to have been built specifically for communal gathering. Not storage, not shelter, not burial. A room designed for people to sit together and face something. Embedded in the walls around those benches are carved human heads. On the ground level, seated human statues were placed facing the center. A second building found higher on the complex contains 4 pillars, stone benches cut into rock, and a stone bowl on the north wall with a carved channel running from it, apparently designed to direct liquid. What that liquid was has not been determined. The earlier phases of Karahantepe and the nearby site of Göbekli Tepe are dominated by carvings of wild animals: boars, vultures, foxes, lions. At the amphitheater structure, that imagery is largely absent. The human figure moves to the center, placed at the focal point of the room. Archaeologists interpret this as evidence of a transition in how these communities understood themselves, from a symbolic world organized around animals to one in which the human form becomes the primary reference point. Many of our viewers are here for the first time and haven't subscribed yet. If you appreciate this type of content, please consider subscribing. It helps support the channel and ensures our future research appears in your recommendations. Karul has specifically argued against describing the space as a temple. If they were temples, their roles would have been more limited. Instead, it appears that their primary function was to bring people together. A temple serves a ritual function directed outward. This room, by its architecture, was directed inward, toward the assembly itself. 500 meters from the main settlement, the team found a quarry, 5 hectares of exposed limestone containing unfinished monoliths still attached to the bedrock. This documents the entire production process in a single location. The builders used stone hammers and flint chisels. There is no evidence of metal. The finished pillars, some standing several meters tall, some carved with detailed human features, were produced entirely by hand at scales coordinated across a labor force that had no written language and no permanent food supply yet secured. Obsidian blades recovered at the site were traced to volcanic sources hundreds of kilometers away, which places Karahantepe within a functioning long-distance exchange network, one capable of moving raw materials and, by implication, people and knowledge across substantial distances. Modern excavation at the site uses ground-penetrating geomagnetic survey to map structures before they are physically opened, 3D laser scanning to document surfaces as they are exposed, photogrammetry to build spatial models of the site, geometry, and radiocarbon dating to sequence each stratigraphic layer. In April 2026, zooarchaeological analysis of recovered material confirmed the dietary profile of the inhabitants. primarily gazelle meat and legumes, consistent with a transitional hunter-gatherer subsistence prior to any documented agriculture at the site. The dominant model in 20th century archaeological theory held that agriculture preceded social complexity. Settled food production created surplus. Surplus enabled population density, and density eventually produced monuments, ritual, and organized communal space. That sequence was internally consistent. The evidence from sites like Karahantepe now points in the opposite direction. The people who built this structure organized complex social gatherings, erected permanent monumental architecture, developed shared symbolic systems, and maintained long-distance exchange networks before any of them farmed. The social need appears to have preceded the agricultural solution. The academic term being revised here is the Neolithic Revolution, a framework introduced in 1936. That revision is now the current direction of the field, not a marginal position. The pillars are worth describing precisely. The horizontal cap represents shoulders, the vertical shaft below represents a human torso. They are not abstract decorative forms, they are stylized human figures rendered in stone, positioned around a room built for assembly. Whoever gathered in that space was surrounded on all sides by stone figures of themselves. The site was deliberately sealed around 8000 BCE. The builders filled it in, an act scholars interpret as intentional closure. It is the reason the structure survived intact for 10 millennia. As of 2026, 95% of Karahantepe remains underground. The questions the field is now working through concern not capability but organization. What kind of social structure produced this? Who convened the assembly? What authority coordinated the labor? What was performed or communicated at the focal point of that room? The carved liquid channel in the secondary building has no confirmed explanation. The seated statue is over 2 meters tall, anatomically detailed, has no confirmed contextual interpretation. The relationship between Karahantepe and the 14 other pre-pottery Neolithic sites now under excavation as part of the Tepe project is still being mapped. 95% of the site has not been opened. The social structures documented in the 5% that has been excavated were operating 11,000 years ago. The question of what else is in the ground, here and at the sites around it, is one the field has not yet had the means to fully ask. If you want to know when the next find like this is announced, the subscribe button is below this video.